Hey everyone, this is Corey with Burns Outdoors, and today we're going to talk about rod blanks. This is literally the most important component you will purchase for your fishing rod, for obvious reasons. The other components, reel seats, guides, and rod grips will affect your rod action, but not significantly enough for you to really be too concerned about it on your first build. So when selecting a rod, you're going to need to think about material. And there's three major materials that rods are being built out of right now that I've had experience building with. And also, just to keep this basic, this is the only three that we're going to talk about in this video. So we're going to talk about heaviest to lightest. So heaviest would be fiberglass, graphite, and then carbon fiber. Fiberglass is exactly what it sounds. It's made out of fiberglass. It tends to be the heaviest, but they are doing new resin makeups and ways of building them so that you end up with a lighter rod, a thinner wall fiberglass, but just as durable and still has that same features that the old-timey fiberglass rods have. They also are, they're your battle wagons, to be honest. I mean, they're durable, good rods. They're sensitive. It's also, guide placement has a lot to do with the sensitivity of your rod, and we'll explain that in another video. But we're going to move on to graphite now. And graphite is another very common rod. It's used widely throughout all the industry. It comes in various grades. So when we talk about a grade of graphite rod, we're talking about the modulus elasticity. And I'm not going to get into the scientific stuff of it and the math and the curves or anything like that, but just to make it simple, if you go and you buy an IM6 rod, it has it's going to be less brittle, it's going to bend a little more, it's going to be a little bit more durable, it's going to have a slower action, it's going to be slightly heavier than an IM10. An IM10 is going to be a little bit more brittle, it's going to have a faster action, it's also going to be lighter, and it's going to have, just to explain what I mean by brittle, is that it doesn't deal with crushing forces or other forces as readily as the IM6. I mean, if you take your IM6 and you dig it into the dirt, it might survive, where an IM10 graphite rod will not do well. You'll snap your tip. So that's something to consider. That does not mean that an IM10 graphite rod is any less strong as an IM6. It just can't deal with different types of abuse. So just consider that when you're building your rod too. Are you going to beat up on it, or are you going to be kind of, you're going to take care of it? Put it in a rod sock, make sure it's up and out of the way, make sure it doesn't get hit by anything, that kind of thing. The next one we're going to talk about is carbon fiber. So carbon fiber is that, I haven't had much experience building on, but it's a great material. It's very durable. Kind of think of fiberglass with the strength of fiberglass with graphite type sensitivity and action. It's very fast. It's got a lot of strength to it. It's very durable, and it's a nice material to build on. The few times that I have built on it, it's also the lightest material to build on. So if you're looking for that ultra super light rod, combine that with a graphite or with a carbon fiber grip, and you'll only be carrying the weight of the reel, really. So when talking about blanks, the other considerations you need to make are in power, action, and length. So we're going to go from power to action to length. Power is literally the backbone of your rod. It is what helps you pull that bass out of the weeds. It's what helps you turn that head of that redfish that you're trying to catch. It's what helps you muscle in those fish. It is the strength of your rod. Okay? And you got anything from light, extra light, medium, heavy, extra heavy, so on and so forth. So that's what it's talking about, is the strength of your rod. Okay? Action is different. All right? And these two terms get confused quite a bit. So when you're talking about action, you're talking about the way the tip reacts. Okay? If you're casting and only the first third of your rod tip bends, you have a fast action rod, and there's various degrees in between. So your rod loads to cast the weighted lure in the first third of that rod length. If it's a medium, it'll go all the way down to the second third. So you have a third of your rod. Let me show you here real quick on a rod one. So when talking about action, we're talking about your rod and how fast that tip moves. So on a fast action rod, the first third of your rod is what's really flexing when it loads. So when you load to cast it with that weighted lure, only really the first third of that rod is going to flex, and that's what a fast action rod does. A medium action rod, the first 2/3, you'll feel it. In that first 2/3, you'll feel that rod load up to power that lure forward. And then a slow action all the way down to the butt. Okay? That's a simple explanation of action and how that affects your casting. So the next thing we're going to talk about is length. Length can affect your casting accuracy. Okay, so the shorter the rod, generally the better control you have of the rod to cast and make those pinpoint accurate casts, dropping it in between lily pads and stuff of that nature. The longer rods are going to get you more distance. And it's not to say that you can't be accurate with a longer rod, it's just a lot of rod to handle. You gotta maneuver it around things around you, and it can throw off your angles when you're trying to pitch it into those little spots that you're trying to catch fish in. Okay, so when you first get your rod length, the first thing you're going to want to do is to find the spine. When we talk about the spine of the rod, there's a belly and then there's a spine. Okay, so the belly is underneath the spine, and the spine's the top of the rod, and that's going to dictate where your guides go. So the belly of the rod is where the spinning guides go. The spine of the rod is where the casting guides go. Okay, and your rod, when it's built, is built on a cylindrical tube. So as the resin comes over top of it, or the adhesive that they use to hold all the material together, the heavy particles kind of settle into a point, and that generates a spot where the rod likes to bend. That's what I mean by spine. So your rod likes to bend in a certain area, and you're going to find that by taking your rod, placing the butt on the ground, and bending it over your shoulder. This is loading, you're loading your rod manually. As you load the rod, you're going to turn it. You're going to turn it across the floor, and you're going to feel it pop. And when it pops, that means you found the spine of the rod, because it's going to want to bend in that area. It's going to feel like it's oblong, even though you know it's perfectly cylindrical. It's going to feel like there's a flat spot. It's going to want to pop to that section. That's the best way to describe it. And when it pops to that section, remember, you've loaded the rod. So what you're looking at is the belly. The opposite side is the top of that, is the spine. Okay? So when you're going to place guides, you got to find that spine first. And when you find that spine, depending on what style of rod you're building, that's what's going to dictate where you put your guides. And you want to mark that belly. And then you can take I have a little card stencil kit that has circles on it that helps me make sure that I'm 180 degrees from the belly of the spine if I'm building a casting rod. So that's going to be part of your initial layout. You got to find that spine first. That's going to dictate where your guides go. That's also going to dictate where your reel seat, the direction that it orients on your rod. So if you have a bait caster reel seat like I showed you in the last video, you're going to want that trigger facing down on the bottom side of the rod or the belly side of the rod, and the flat spot where your reel sits facing up on the spine. So just keep those things in mind. The other thing with initial layout, and this will affect your action of your rod, is how you place your grip. So we talked about split grips, we talked about straight grips, and the length of those is really kind of up to you. It's kind of a preference thing. What are you trying to do? Do you like the extra leverage of the extra long grip? If you do, that's fine. But just remember that the more epoxy you add to your rod, the more space you take up on the butt, the more that rod's going to stiffen. And it may not make sense, but when you force something to stay straight and conform and remove some of the flex, even in a fast action rod, you'll find it gets stiffer. Because no matter how fast your rod is, it's going to have, everything's going to move in that body of that blank. So those are the things you need to consider. So just a quick review. You want to consider material. There's graphite, fiberglass, carbon fiber. Graphite being the head, right in the middle of the two. It's in weight, it's durable, and its functionality. Fiberglass being the heaviest of the three, and being a little bit more of a battle wagon, really tough, durable, slower action typically, and then your carbon fiber, which is a fast action, very durable rod. You want to consider power. You want to know how strong you need your rod for the particular application. Are you planning on pulling, bass out of a thicket of cover? So your 2-pound bass is now 12 pounds because you pulled it out of weeds? Or are you looking for trout, panfish, little tiny things that you kind of want to feel the fight with? You want to be careful not to undersize your rod because it just puts undue stress on fish. You want to consider action. Okay, action is what we talked about as being the way the tip moves, how fast that tip moves. So what part of that tip moves and how it loads up for your rod. So remember, the first third of the rod, if that's what loads up when you cast it, it's a fast action rod. If the first 2/3 of the rod loads up, it tends to be a medium rod. And if the whole rod flexes and moves and loads up in order to cast that weighted lure, it's a slow action rod. And they all have their applications, and they're all used differently throughout the industry. So you want to also find the spine, and this is integral to your initial layout. So finding the spine dictates where your guides are. Remember, the spine is where the rod likes to bend. It wants to load in this. You want to build your rod to load like this. You'll cause torsion stresses across the rod blank, and your rod blank won't last as long. Your guides will look like they're twisting across the rod blank because your rod's still going to want to bend in those areas. So your line's going to ride on the side of your guides versus at the top of the guide, or the pinnacle of the guide, or even just the lowest portion of your guide. It's not going to ride correctly. And then in keeping all that in mind, and finding your spine, you also want to think about how that affects the way you place your reel seat. So your reel seat's going to be oriented based on where that spine is and where your reel's going to hang. On a spinning rod, that's underneath. That's on the belly of the spine. On the casting rods, it's on the spine itself, right over the top of the rod. Okay? And just remember, all that can be affected by how much epoxy you put on this rod. And that'll be discussed when we do the actual layout of the grip and the butt wraps in the next video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it was informational. If you have any questions, comment below and I'll answer as best I can. Subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time.